Thank you for being here. Do I have the capacity to share?
You should have the capacity to share.
Okay,
While you're trying to figure that out, I'd
yeah.
just like to quickly mention something concerning what Mr. Mario said earlier um, about, the fact that sometimes people don't really want to network and connect with people that doesn't look like them. Here at the CNP, you can tell from the theme, which is the power of inclusion, and then you can tell from the variety of speakers that we have that we are highly inclusive. We go all out to look for people that we have the same mindset, the same beliefs. We don't care how you look or what the color of your skin is. We see ourselves as humans, and as long as we are good people, we are good to go. So that's what the CNP stands for. We are intentional about who we associate with, and it's quite obvious from a variety of speakers. So without taking too much of Dr. Yetunde's time, I will let her fly.
Okay. All right. I welcome everyone again to Power of Inclusion 5.0. And I am so delighted to be here to speak on From Trials to Triumph, African Immigrant Women Redefining Black Womanhood and Leadership in Canada. So for every one of us who's an immigrant, an African immigrant, we arrive in Canada with great expectations, isn't that so? We come bright-eyed and very hopeful, and our hopes and expectations are most probably based on the promise of the point system of immigration, isn't that so? We're going to Canada and it's like, yay, we're going to Canada. We have this myth of the idealized West, right? So that life in the West will probably be better than life anywhere on the African continent. But so many of us arrive here as immigrant professionals, and we have the understanding that our skills are needed and wanted, and that our human capital is greatly valued because, Canada has called for the brightest and best from all over the world. So I just want to ask, how did just by, I'd like people to put that in the comments. How did your expectations and your labor market experiences align? So I can't see the chat. Is it possible to see the chats? Okay. So how did your labor market experiences and your expectations align? Is there anybody who can put that out there? All right. Okay, no alignment at all. Anybody else there? No correlation, so demoralizing, right? Okay. So that probably speaks to the experiences of most African immigrants. I would say all African immigrants. So you come here with the expectation that, oh, wow, Canada wants my education. I'm a lawyer, I'm an accountant, I'm whatever I am, an administrator. I have all this education from back in Africa, and it is needed and wanted in Canada. They need my human capital. And we come with all of that, and then we come into this space, and what happens? What happens? Number one, those who are trying to get into certain professions that are regulated, they find that they have to face these hoops they have to join through, long recredentialing processes. So we experience the devaluation of our credentials in so many forms and ways. And one interesting thing is that we are surprised, a lot of us are surprised by that experience, but that is not the end of the story. So for us as immigrants, when we get here and we face these things, we don't just roll over and die and just allow ourselves to be carried wheresoever we will. So this session is about highlighting how African immigrant women are reshaping and rewriting existing narratives about Black womanhood and leadership. It's about how we negotiate our intersecting identities as Black racialized bodies, as women, as immigrants, professionals, wives, mothers, and all the different identities we bring into this space. Then it's also about our unique and subtle subversive activities, the activities we engage in subtly resisting systemic oppression and marginalization, and then how we as immigrants from Africa actively create space for ourselves here in Canada. So Canadian immigration over the years has, like I said, it's been driven by the needs, the labor market demands. And then Canada's population growth is also driven by immigration demand, by immigration. So the growth of population in Canada is mostly based on immigration. And Canadian immigration policy, even though most of us don't think that way, was historically very, very, very Eurocentric. It was exclusive and discriminatory. So the Eurocentricity was actually kind of dismantled in 1967 when there was the introduction of a more liberal point system, which emphasized human capital as the principal consideration for immigrants coming into Canada. So for those of us who came through the skilled workers program, we see that when you go online, they'll ask you they'll ask you certain questions and you assigned points for those different things. And for education and qualifications and experience, you'll get more points. So since the introduction of the more liberal point system of immigration, the source countries of immigrants to Canada have really shifted from Europe to the nations of the global South, and we have the nations of Asia, Latin America, and Africa. The interesting thing that has since happened is that the new immigrants, this new cohort of immigrants from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, they experience hardship and constrained access to the labor market, to the Canadian labor market, and patterns of economic performance have changed compared to the periods when immigrants were mostly from Europe. So when immigrants, for those of us as immigrants, when we come into this space, we come in just as Africans. Africans, we have no clue of the historicity that stands between us and Canada. So there's this Eurocentric notion of Africanness that's already in existence. And those are things such as Africa is underdeveloped, it's undeveloped, or maybe it's a developing country when they want to put it nicely, and that Africans are intellectually and morally inferior. So Africans are still largely savages, they are barbarians, and they're in need of civilization by the West. And that educational qualifications from Africa are mostly inferior to Western qualifications. So those are the notions that we do not know about, but we come into this space and we find that to be what prevails. Now, also for the African woman, there are also existing images or representations of Black womanhood that we are generally oblivious of. And those are that Black women are angry, they're aggressive, they're unintelligent, they're these ghetto-like personalities, they're hypersexual. So when you see those representations, I think Patricia Bebia was talking about the media earlier today, and whosoever controls the media, controls the narrative, controls the representations and the images that are projected out there for people to see. And whatever is projected is the imagery that sticks in people's minds about various groups of people. So for the Black woman, it's there that they are like, these gold-digging people, they're welfare dependent, or these mammy tropes. And these mammy tropes refer to those women who are just warm and helpful and subordinate. They're just in these service roles. They're just good to operate as servants. And so when you get into Canada, most of the jobs that are easily accessible to new immigrants, especially women, are jobs that have to do with care and service. So when African women arrive here as immigrants, they come in with their African identities. They come in seeing themselves as Africans. Well, I see myself as a Nigerian. Someone from Ghana says I'm Ghanaian, and that's core, that's central to the identity. But through processes of immigration, these women become And I say become, in quote, Black immigrants. So there is now this idea of Blackness that overshadows whatever identity you're bringing from Africa. So you take so in the eyes of the dominant group, there is a certain way that you are viewed. There's a certain way your abilities, your intelligence, your capacities are viewed. So African women take up new identities, and these identities are based on their intersecting social identities in terms of race, gender, class, and immigrant status. And for as far as Black people are concerned, you find out that the term immigrant becomes an enduring thing. So you find white people who are able to cast off that toga of immigrant, but it does not matter how many generations of Black people you have, they are still seen as immigrants. And then the term immigrant often signifies a labor market relation. So in the Canadian superstructure, you find that immigrant women's labor becomes commodified and cheapened. So they are asked to do certain jobs, which could be described as the 3Ds. They are called dirty, dangerous, and I forgot the third one now. But these are jobs that are often available, and because you need to survive, you need to make an income. African women are readily able to take up those jobs. So African women in general are plunged without preparation into the navigation of new structures of exclusion and marginalization. And then we have to negotiate new identities in this Canadian space. And there are already pre-written expectations and demands that have been encoded on Black bodies historically. So the labor market experiences of African immigrant women show that and I'm focusing primarily on professionals because this is the Council of African Professionals. So these are people who have come with years of education, years of experience, and they come into this space and they are looking for jobs within their area of specializations, and they cannot find them because they are faced, number one, with processes of recredentialing that are lengthy and convoluted in some places, and not well defined, or the labor market itself discriminates against them by asking for things such as Canadian work experience. What is Canadian work experience? It's an exclusionary tool that is used, to lock immigrants, especially immigrants of color, out of the Canadian labor market, especially the professional tiers. And what the statistics tell us is that 40% of people with a bachelor's degree in Canada were born in Africa. And that is higher than the national average of 32.9%. That's Stats Canada 2023. And so we find that even though immigrant women possess higher levels of educational qualifications, they are streamed to the bottom of the racialized hierarchy in the Canadian labor market through the devaluation of their foreign credentials, through requesting for Canadian work experience, and other such vague expectations in the market. Sometimes your accent too plays a role. They say your accent when you speak, I can't understand what you're saying. And so you're locked out of the labor market on those terms. So the devaluation of our credentials leads to downward social mobility. And when we look around us, we find that there is an underrepresentation of Black women in professional occupations. So when we arrive into this space and we face all these challenges, we go through this period of trials. There is downward mobility. There is underemployment. There is unemployment. What do African women do? African women are women who refuse. They refuse to be denigrated on a permanent basis. Yes, there are trials when we arrive here. There are jobs we do that are beneath us, beneath our educations, our qualifications, our experience. But that's okay. We go through those stages, and then we challenge those stereotypes that we already meet here about Black people. So we challenge the stereotypes and the stereotypical constructions of Black identity and womanhood. We tell them, yes, you may be used to these kind of tropes, but we are different. We're able to overcome these. So through their determination, hard work, and resilience, they continue to rupture notions of intellectual inferiority and incompetency. So they learn to negotiate the lengthy re-credentialing processes that they are faced with to get into their professions. So for instance, you have people who are doctors who have to do several layers of exams just to be able to get in for residency before they can go into the residency program. And these are people who have done residency at some point in time before. So they have to go through that. They endure, they persevere, and they patiently go through these stages, they go through these processes, and they finish them and they come out. And in some other cases, these women switch to new professions. And their new professions they switch into are based on pragmatism. What is practical? What is workable? What can fly in my current state? And by scanning the labor markets, what are the needs in the labor market? What places can I go into? How can I navigate so that I will come out better and in something that will give me much fulfillment? So these women also forge new paths to economic fulfillment through entrepreneurship. So some women say, okay, I am not able to get into my profession, but I can go another route and be an entrepreneur, and they start their businesses. So African women's leadership is not just about occupying a position or playing a role or having a title. Many times when we look at leadership, we're looking at somebody who has a title, somebody who has an official position. But their leadership goes beyond those formal roles or those positional titles. It's care-based and community-based actions or activities where they influence people in their homes, in their spiritual places, whether they be communities of faith or communities of work or neighborhoods or ethnic communities or places where they share common interests. These women go into those spaces pretty much like what we have with Lady Abba, go into those communities and try to influence and give them direction. African women also, as part of their leadership, they actively navigate their multiple identities, and they are demonstrators of agency. They are agentic participants in this structure, and they are able to act in ways that ensure an elevation of their socioeconomic fortunes. African immigrant women here in Canada also demonstrate leadership in being able to resist various permutations of institutionalized oppression. I want to tell you, I would like you to know that, this devaluation of foreign credentials is institutionalized oppression. And through what standards are the African credentials measured to be found substandard to its Canadian credentials? And this same group of women, when they go into school, when they do different things, they shine, they outperform their peers at several levels. So they're able to resist all the forms of oppression, institutionalized oppression, systemic oppression, and in their resilience, they're able to undermine systemic barriers to their self-actualization. So as leaders, as individual leaders, they're able to surmount those challenges, those obstacles, those barriers that are placed along their paths. Because when we talk about leadership, self-leadership is the most important kind of self-leadership, the most important kind of leadership, until you are able to lead yourself before you can lead other people. And African immigrant women here in Canada, they're making their voices heard, and they're creating spaces for themselves, whether they're spaces in the media, whether they're spaces in academia, whether they're spaces in the law, in medicine, in various places, in the arts, entertainment, the voices of African women, immigrant women, are being heard. So African immigrant women are redefining the concept of Black womanhood in Canada in ways that are community-centered and inclusive. So diversity, equity, and inclusivity are important in our way of viewing life and including people in what we're doing. So we're not just conforming to the way things are done, the way they view leaders as maybe somebody who is a CEO of Fortune 500 company. That's not all there is to leadership. There is leadership in our homes, in our communities, in ways that are inclusive. So we are also redefining leadership in transformational, in agentic, adaptive, and relational terms that other people can relate to. So you find immigrants, the older immigrants, who have become mentors and coaches and helpers to those who are new. And then through changing narratives, we lead through care and through our resilience. Resilience is a huge part of what we need to be able to get through things here in this land, in this space called Canada. So we do our leadership. We do not need recognition. We do not need people to blow or toot our horns for us. Oh, this person is doing this. But our leadership is significant, and it's making impact on the lives of people who are within our spheres of influence. So my final word on this is that all of us as immigrants, we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us to draw inspiration and strength to enable us take root here and to thrive. So although there are trials we face on arrival in this space, and although there are existing preconceived notions of our abilities and our knowledges, we must be determined to rupture those stereotypes and show what has been built within us as African women. And yes, we can. Thanks. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Wow. I see when you were talking, I was inserting the inside job, and everything just flows really good together. Thank you so much, Dr. Yetunde. Dr. Yetunde, I beg your pardon. I have a Dr. Yetunde friend, so forgive me. But that was awesome. That was beautiful. That was very, very well delivered. Just checking. I know the next speaker is supposed to come up at 3, and we were supposed to have taken questions, and we're supposed to have gone on a short break as well. So I'm just checking to see if there is a quick question for you. Yeah, I agree. Most of these presentations are extremely beautiful. Shall we get opportunity to get the slides? Okay, we'll see what we can do about the slides. Sometimes it's also good to just rewatch the YouTube videos so that you can really relearn some of these things all over again. Okay. Okay. Okay, just one. Okay, it's actually a comment. Powerful presentation, Dr. Yetunde. You are confirming that Ode Jimmy Cliff's song remains profound today. She's a woman so strong. Are there any areas you think us, the men, can make greater contribution to support our African immigrant women to build our community? Okay, it first sounded like a like a comment, and then I didn't see the question at the end. Okay, let's just quickly take this, and let's quickly take this. Dr. Yetunde.
Absolutely. There's so many ways that we can support our women. Most African men come into this environment still with that African way of thinking, I'm the man, I am the boss. The woman has to do everything, right? She has to take care of the children. She has to take care of the children. She has to cook. She has to be at the children's school and all those things. And so there is a greater burden placed on the women. So we find that when it comes to processes of recredentialing or finding work, women often lag behind. Men are able to go ahead and do those things faster. But women, they take a snail's pace because they allow the men to go. But you see, for us all, because when we all join hands together, we arise. I'm a pastor, so I'll speak from the scripture. It says, 2 are better than 1, for they have a good reward for their labor. So when 2 people are working together, it is easier to be able to overcome these barriers. So while a woman spends 5 years recredentialing and a man is done in 18 months, why don't men support the women in terms of domestic things? domestic chores. So taking things off the hands of the woman so that the woman too can be able to do her exams, do whatever she needs to do, and not just be the one bearing the burden of domestic chores and caring for the children. We should begin to think of shared responsibility, because when we have the rewards are shared. So we must also share the responsibilities. Thank you.
Very, very well said. I did a YouTube video on something like this, and that narrative is fast changing, especially for men who really want their wives to fly. Okay. I think that's all we can
But do
take.
you think that narrative is fast changing, Mr. Julius?
Absolutely. For people in my circle, that we
Okay.
have the same mindset, and all we need is to start small. Like MBA, my wife did us before I did mine. Our professionals, she's now a fellow in one of those areas because she started way before me. So we have in our various fields, we have our certifications and all of that. And again, happy wife, happy life. You can't restrict your wife if you want to be truly happy, right?
That's
So
what
let her
that's what
fly.
some men think. Maybe now men should begin to pass the message across. They should make sure this message goes around widely. There are a lot of women in my circle whose husbands are still in Nigeria and Ghana, whatever places. Why? Because they think, oh well, if I come here, I won't find a job. So they leave them with 3 children, 4 children. How easy will life be for that woman?
We will mentor them. They will change.
Okay.
Let's not shatter that glass table yet.
Oh, really?
There's
You
a
just
lot.
want to package the table there.
There's a lot
Okay.
to unpack there, but that was excellently delivered. I could feel the passion. Thank you so much, Dr. Yetunde. And like you said, a lot of things are changing. And we would appreciate the small changes, and then we'll keep pushing. And any opportunity we have to talk to men, I lead efforts where I speak to men at a very high level. So I will take this feedback and I will tell them, men, this is what they are saying about us. We need to do better. All
Yeah.
right. So thank you so much. All right. We will move on.